The message came on a cold morning. Tay was eating his breakfast in his small apartment on Earth when his computer made a sound. He looked at the screen and saw a letter from the Galactic Court of Inheritance. His grandfather, the old man he had not seen in 15 years, was dead. Tay put down his spoon. He did not feel sad. He felt empty. His grandfather had left Earth a long time ago, chasing dreams among the stars. The family said he was crazy. They said he wasted his life looking for something that did not exist. Now he was gone, and Tay was the only one who received anything from him. The inheritance was simple. One hangar. Location, Kira 7, a frozen moon at the edge of human space. Value according to the court, 0 credits. Tay read the document 3 times, 0 credits. The court had looked at the property and decided it was worth nothing. The hangar was old. The moon was cold. Nobody wanted to live there. Nobody wanted to buy it. His mother called him that evening. She was laughing, but not in a kind way. "Your grandfather left you garbage," she said. "That old fool. He spent his whole life collecting worthless things, and now he gives you the most worthless thing of all." Tay did not answer. He just listened. "Sell it," his mother continued. "Or leave it. Nobody cares about a broken hangar on a frozen rock." But something inside Tay felt different. He looked at the picture of the hangar attached to the document. It was old and gray. Snow covered its roof. The metal walls were rusted. But it was his. For the first time in his life, something in this universe belonged to him. He had nothing on Earth. His job was boring. His apartment was small. He had no wife, no children, no future. He was 32 years old, and he felt like he had already finished living. Maybe, he thought, this worthless hangar was exactly what he needed. 2 weeks later, Tay stood at the spaceport with 1 bag and 1 dragon. Nuri was a fire dragon, small enough to fit in a transport ship but strong enough to melt steel. Tay had bonded with her when he was a child. In the old days, many humans had bonded with dragons. But dragons were expensive to keep, and most people sold them or let them go. Tay never did. Nuri was his only friend. The dragon sat next to him, her scales shining red and gold under the lights. She was the size of a large dog, with wings folded against her back and smoke rising from her nose. People walking by looked at her with surprise. Dragons were rare now. Most humans thought they were useless, just pets that ate too much and burned things. "Ready?" Tay asked her. Nuri made a low sound in her throat. It meant yes. The journey to Kira 7 took 3 weeks. Tay traveled on a cheap transport ship filled with workers and traders. Most of them were aliens, tall Vakari with blue skin, short Mulgan with 4 arms, and the proud Corvani, who always looked at humans like they were insects. On the ship, Tay heard what aliens really thought about humans. "Humans are the poorest species in the galaxy," a Vakari said one night in the common room. "They have no great technology, they have no powerful weapons, they spread across the stars like weeds, but they own nothing." The Corvani next to him laughed. "I heard a human once tried to buy land on Vakari Prime. They offered him a garbage dump. He was so happy he cried." More laughter. Tay sat in the corner, saying nothing. Nuri pressed against his leg, her body warm. He could feel her anger, but he touched her head gently. "Not now," he told her silently. "Not here." The aliens were not wrong. Humans had arrived late to the galactic community. When they finally reached the stars, all the good planets were taken, all the rich moons were owned. Humans got the leftovers, the cold places, the empty places, the places nobody else wanted. But humans did not give up. That was the one thing Tay knew about his species. They never gave up. The transport ship arrived at Kira 7 on a dark afternoon. Tay looked through the window and saw a white world. Snow everywhere, mountains of ice. Gray clouds that never moved. "You are staying here?" the ship captain asked. He was a Molgan with kind eyes. "There is nothing here, human. Only cold and death. My grandfather lived here," Tay said. "He left me something." The captain shook his head. "Whatever he left you, it is not worth your life. This moon kills people." But Tay walked off the ship anyway. Nuri followed him, her claws clicking on the frozen ground. The cold hit them immediately, a terrible biting cold that went through clothes and skin and reached the bones. Tay pulled his coat tighter and started walking. The hangar was 2 kilometers from the landing zone. Tay walked through the snow, his boots sinking with every step. Nuri stayed close, her body giving off heat that kept him alive. Without her, he would have frozen in minutes. When he finally saw the hangar, his heart sank. It was worse than the picture. Much worse. The building was huge but broken. Half the roof had fallen in. The walls were covered with ice and rust. The door hung open, frozen in place. Snow had piled inside, filling the space like a white sea. Tay stood there for a long time, just looking. "This is it," he said to Nuri. "This is what grandfather left me." Nuri walked forward and sniffed the air. She made a strange sound, not angry, not happy, but curious. Tay followed her inside. The hangar was empty except for snow and broken machines. Old ship parts lay scattered on the floor. Tools hung on the walls, rusted and useless. In the corner, he found a small room with a bed, a table, and a chair. This was where his grandfather had lived. On the table, there was a letter. Tay picked it up with shaking hands. The paper was old and yellow. The writing was small and careful. "Dear Tay," it said, "if you are reading this, then you came. I knew you would. You are like me, too stubborn to listen to others. This hangar looks worthless. Everyone will tell you it is worthless. But I am telling you the truth. There is treasure here. I found it, but I was too old to dig it out. I am leaving it to you. Trust your dragon. She will know." Grandfather. Tay read the letter again and again. Treasure? What treasure? He looked around the broken hangar, the snow, the rust, the emptiness. Everyone had called this place worthless. The court said it was worth 0 credits. His family laughed at him, but his grandfather said there was treasure. Tay folded the letter and put it in his pocket. Then he looked at Nuri. "Well," he said, "I guess we are staying." Nuri breathed a small flame into the air, melting the snowflakes around her. For the first time in years, Ty smiled. The first winter almost killed Ty. He had prepared as best as he could. He brought food, water purifiers, heating units, and thick blankets. But nothing could prepare a person for the cold of Kira 7. The temperature dropped so low at night that the air itself seemed to freeze. Ice formed on the inside of the walls. His breath turned to frost before it left his mouth. Nuri saved him every night. The dragon curled around him while he slept, her body burning with inner fire. Without her heat, Tay would have died in the first week. He held onto her scales and listened to her heartbeat, and somehow he survived. During the day, he worked. The hangar was a disaster, but Tay refused to give up. He cleared the snow from the main room. He fixed the door so it could close properly. He found old heating units in the storage area and spent 3 days repairing them. When they finally worked, he cried with relief. Slowly, the hangar became a home, but survival cost money. Heating units needed fuel, food needed to be bought, medicine, tools, replacement parts. Everything had a price, and Tay had almost nothing. His grandfather had left him the hangar but no credits. The old man had spent everything he had on this frozen dream. Tay searched for work. The nearest outpost was called Winter Station, a small trading post about 50 kilometers away. He traveled there on an old land vehicle he found in the hangar. The vehicle was slow and loud, but it moved through the snow well enough. Winter Station was ugly. It was built from metal containers stacked on top of each other. Smoke rose from pipes on the roof. Aliens moved through the narrow streets buying and selling goods. Humans were rare here. Tay counted only 3 others during his first visit. He walked into the job center and stood in line. The Corvani behind the desk looked at him with cold eyes. Species? Human, Tay said. Skills? I can fix machines. I can build things. We do not need builders, the Corvani interrupted. We need strong workers for the ice mines. 12 hours a day. Pay is 40 credits per week. 40 credits? That was nothing. The heating fuel alone cost 30 credits per week. I will take it, Tay said. The Corvani smiled in a way that was not friendly. Good. Humans always take what they can get. The ice mines were hell. Tay worked deep underground, cutting blocks of ice from the frozen walls. The ice was special. It contained minerals that aliens used in their technology. But the work was terrible. The tunnels were narrow and dark. The cold made his fingers numb. His back ached from bending. His lungs burned from the thin air. The other workers were mostly Vakari and Molgan. They worked faster than Tay and laughed at his slow human body. Look at the human, one Vakari said. He moves like an old man. Humans should stay on Earth, another added. They are not made for real work. Tay said nothing. He just kept cutting ice. At night, he returned to the hangar and collapsed on his bed. Nuri would bring him food she had caught, small animals that lived beneath the snow. Tay cooked them over her flames and ate in silence. Sometimes he read his grandfather's letter again. There is treasure here. Trust your dragon. But where was the treasure? Tay had searched the entire hangar. He had looked in every corner, every room, every broken machine. He found nothing except rust and snow. Maybe his grandfather had been crazy after all. The months passed slowly. Winter turned into a deeper winter. The days grew shorter. The nights grew colder. Tay lost weight. His face became thin and tired. He worked in the mines 6 days a week and spent his one free day repairing the hangar. One evening, a message arrived on his old computer. It was from Hana, his cousin on Earth. Tay, the message said, I heard you went to that frozen moon. Everyone thinks you are crazy, but I know you. You do not do things without a reason. I am sending you a package. It is not much, but I hope it helps. Stay alive. Hana. The package arrived 2 weeks later. Inside, Tay found medicine, dried food, warm gloves, and a small device for generating heat. There was also a letter. I believe in you, Hana wrote. When everyone else laughs, remember that one person believes in you. Tay held the letter for a long time. His eyes were wet, but he did not cry. He was too tired to cry. He used the heat generator to warm the hangar. He ate the dried food. He wore the gloves to the mines. And he kept working. Spring came, but it did not feel like spring. The snow did not melt. The cold did not leave. On Kira 7, spring only meant the sun appeared for a few more hours each day. Tay had been on the moon for 8 months now. He had saved a small amount of credits, just enough to survive another season. But he was exhausted, his body hurt, his spirit was weak. One day at Winter Station, he heard aliens talking about him. The human is still alive, a Molgan said with surprise. I thought he would die by now. Humans are like insects, a Corvani replied. You crush them, but they keep moving. Why does he stay? There is nothing on that part of the moon, just ice and an old hangar. Maybe he is waiting to die. Humans do that sometimes. They choose strange places to end their lives. Tay stood nearby, pretending not to hear. His hands were shaking, not from cold, but from anger. He wanted to shout at them. He wanted to tell them that humans were not insects, that humans had dreams and hopes and strength. That his grandfather had found something on this moon, something important, something that would make them all understand. But he said nothing. He bought his supplies and walked back to his vehicle. On the drive home, he talked to Nuri. They think we are nothing, he said. They think humans are weak and stupid. Nuri made a low, rumbling sound. Maybe they are right, Tay continued. Maybe I am wasting my life here. Maybe grandfather was just a crazy old man. Nuri turned her head and looked at him. Her golden eyes were bright and fierce. She made another sound, a sharp, strong sound that seemed to say, "No, you are not wasting your life. Keep going." Tay smiled sadly. "You always believe in me, don't you?" Nuri pressed her warm head against his arm. When they reached the hangar, Tay noticed something strange. Nuri jumped off the vehicle and ran toward the building. She stopped near the back wall and started sniffing the ground. "What is it?" Tay asked. Nuri scratched at the snow with her claws. She pushed her nose into the ice. Then she looked at Tay and made an excited sound. Tay walked over and looked at the ground. It was just snow and ice like everywhere else. "There is nothing there," he said. But Nuri kept scratching. She breathed fire onto the ground, melting a small hole. Then she dug deeper. Tay watched her for a while. Then he shook his head and went inside to sleep. That night, he dreamed of his grandfather. The old man was standing in the hangar, pointing at the floor. "Trust your dragon," he said. "She will know." Tay woke up with those words echoing in his mind. Trust your dragon. He looked at Nuri, who was sleeping beside him. Her tail twitched like she was dreaming too. What did she know that he did not? Tay lay awake for hours, thinking about the treasure, the letter, and the frozen ground beneath the hangar. Maybe, just maybe, his grandfather was not crazy after all. Something changed in Nuri after that night. The dragon became restless. She stopped sleeping through the night. Instead, she would wake up and walk around the hangar, sniffing the floor, scratching at the frozen ground. Her golden eyes had a strange light in them, focused and determined. Tay watched her with confusion. "What are you looking for?" he asked her one morning. Nuri did not answer. She just kept sniffing, moving from spot to spot, searching for something only she could sense. Dragons had abilities that humans did not understand. They could feel heat from far away. They could smell things buried deep underground. Some people said dragons could even sense the future. Tay had always thought that was nonsense, but now he was not so sure. Days passed, and Nuri's behavior grew more intense. She started focusing on one area, the back corner of the hangar near the old storage room. She would sit there for hours, staring at the floor, growling softly. Tay tried to ignore it. He had work to do. The mines were hard, and he needed every credit he could earn. He did not have time for dragon mysteries. But Nuri would not let him ignore her. One evening, when Tay came home from the mines, he found the hangar filled with smoke. Nuri had burned a hole in the floor, a deep hole, almost a meter wide. The edges were black and melted. Steam rose from the ice below. "Nuri!" Tay shouted. "What are you doing?" The dragon looked at him with bright eyes. She was not sorry. She was excited. She made a loud sound and pointed her nose at the hole. Tay walked over and looked down. He saw nothing but darkness and ice. "There is nothing there," he said. "Just frozen ground. The same frozen ground that covers this whole moon." Nuri growled in disagreement. She breathed another stream of fire into the hole, making it deeper. "Stop!" Tay grabbed her and pulled her back. "You will burn down the hangar!" But Nuri struggled against him. She was strong, stronger than she looked. Her body was hot with excitement, and her wings beat the air. Tay held her tight. "Listen to me. I know you think something is down there, but I have searched this place 100 times. There is nothing. Grandfather was wrong. There is no treasure." Nuri stopped struggling. She looked at Tay with those golden eyes, and for a moment, she seemed sad. Then she pressed her head against his chest and made a soft sound. Tay sighed and held her. "I know you are trying to help, but we need to be careful. We cannot waste energy on dreams. That night, Tay covered the hole with metal sheets and went to sleep. He was too tired to think about treasures or dragons or his grandfather's letter. But Nuri did not sleep. Tay woke up to a strange sound, a deep, rumbling sound that shook the walls. He sat up in bed and looked around. The hangar was glowing with orange light. Nuri was gone. He jumped out of bed and ran to the back of the hangar. The metal sheets he had placed over the hole were melted. In their place was a pit of fire, flames pouring down into the darkness like a river of light. Nuri was at the bottom. "Nuri!" Tay screamed. He could barely see her through the smoke and flames. She was 3 meters below the floor, standing on melted ice, breathing fire at the ground below her. The permafrost, the frozen soil that covered Kira 7 like a blanket, was melting around her. Tay did not think. He grabbed a rope from the wall and tied it to a support beam. Then he lowered himself into the pit. The heat was incredible. Sweat poured down his face. His clothes felt like they were burning, but he kept going down, hand over hand, until he reached Nuri. "We have to go!" he shouted over the roar of the flames. "The ground will collapse!" But Nuri ignored him. She kept breathing fire, deeper and deeper. The ice beneath them cracked and groaned. Then Tay saw it. Something was down there. Something metal. Something huge. He could see the edge of it through the melting ice, a smooth, silver surface, perfectly flat, perfectly clean. It was not natural. Someone had put it there. "What is that?" Tay whispered. Nuri stopped breathing fire. She looked at Tay and made a sound that seemed to say, "This. This is what I was looking for." Tay stared at the metal surface. His heart was pounding. His mind was racing. His grandfather had said there was treasure beneath the hangar. Everyone had laughed. Everyone had said he was crazy. But here it was, proof that the old man had been telling the truth. "We need to dig more," Tay said, "but carefully. We cannot destroy whatever this is." He climbed back up the rope and spent the next hour setting up a safe system. He brought down tools and lights. He created a ladder so he could go up and down easily. He covered the edges of the pit with heat-resistant material to prevent more damage. Then, together with Nuri, he began to dig. It took all night. Tai used tools while Nuri used her fire, working carefully, slowly revealing more of the metal surface. By morning, they had uncovered something amazing. It was a door. A large, round door made of silver metal, set into the frozen ground like a plug in a drain. There were symbols on the door. Strange symbols that Tay did not recognize. They were not human symbols. They were older, much older. Tay sat at the edge of the pit, exhausted and amazed. "A door," he said. "There is a door under my hangar." Nuri sat beside him, her body still warm from all the fire she had breathed. She looked proud and happy. Tay remembered his grandfather's letter. "Trust your dragon. She will know." The old man had been right. Nuri had known. She had sensed the door from the moment they arrived. She had felt the treasure hidden beneath the ice. But what was behind the door? And how did his grandfather know it was there? Tay looked at the symbols again. They seemed familiar somehow, like something from a dream or a story. Then he remembered. He had seen these symbols before, in old books about the galaxy's history. They were pre-war symbols, symbols from the time before the Great War that had destroyed half the civilizations in the galaxy. The pre-war era was ancient history. Most of its technology had been lost. Most of its secrets had been buried. But this door was real. This door was here, under his worthless hangar, on a frozen moon that nobody wanted. Tay started laughing. He laughed until tears ran down his face. "Grandfather," he said to the sky, "you crazy old man. You actually found something." Nuri nudged his arm with her nose. Tay wiped his eyes and stood up. "You are right. We cannot stop now. We need to open that door." But how? The door had no handle, no keypad, no visible way to open it. The symbols might be instructions, but Tay could not read them. He needed help. He needed someone who knew about pre-war technology, and he knew exactly who to ask. He climbed out of the pit and went to his computer. His hands were shaking as he typed a message to Hana. "I found it," he wrote. "Grandfather was telling the truth. There is something under the hangar, something from before the war. I need your help. Please come." He sent the message and sat back in his chair. Outside, the sun was rising over the frozen hills of Kira 7. The sky was gray and cold, like always. But to Tay, everything looked different now. He was not crazy. His grandfather was not crazy. There was treasure here. Real treasure, hidden for thousands of years. And he was going to find it. Nuri jumped onto his lap and curled up, exhausted from her night of digging. Tay held her close and watched the sunrise. "Good girl," he whispered. "You found it. You found the door." Nuri made a soft, happy sound and closed her eyes. For the first time since arriving on Kira 7, Tay felt hope, real hope, bright and warm like dragon fire. The treasure was waiting. All he had to do was open the door. Hana arrived 3 weeks later. She came on a small transport ship carrying bags of equipment and books. When she stepped onto the frozen ground of Kira 7, she looked around with wide eyes. "This place is worse than I imagined," she said. Tay hugged her. It was the first time he had touched another human in almost a year. "Thank you for coming." Hana was not just his cousin. She was also a historian. She had spent her life studying the pre-war era, reading old texts and examining ancient artifacts. If anyone could understand the symbols on the door, it was her. They walked to the hangar together. Hana gasped when she saw the pit and the silver door at the bottom. "This is real," she whispered. "This is actually real." "I told you," Tay said. "Grandfather found something." Hana climbed down the ladder and knelt beside the door. She touched the symbols with trembling fingers. "These are Starkeeper symbols. The Starkeepers were a species that existed before the Great War. They were incredibly advanced. When the war destroyed their civilization, they hid their most important technology in secret vaults across the galaxy." "A vault?" Tay asked. "You mean this door leads to a vault?" "It must. The Starkeepers built these vaults to protect their treasures from the war. Most of them have never been found." She looked at Tay with excited eyes. "Do you understand what this means? You might be sitting on one of the greatest discoveries in galactic history." Tay felt dizzy. "But how did Grandfather know it was here?" Hana shook her head. "I do not know. Maybe he found old records. Maybe he searched for years. Your grandfather was strange, but he was also very smart." She spent the next 3 days studying the symbols. She compared them to her books. She took pictures and ran them through translation programs. Slowly, she began to understand what they said. "The door will only open for heat," she said one evening. "Starkeeper vaults were designed to stay closed in cold environments. To open them, you need sustained heat, a lot of heat." Tay looked at Nuri. The dragon was sleeping by the fire, her scales glowing softly. "How much heat?" "More than most species can produce. The Starkeepers believed that only those with the power of fire deserved to enter their vaults." Hana smiled. "Your dragon might be the key." The next morning, they tried. Nuri stood before the silver door, her body tense with energy. Tay knelt beside her, his hand on her back. "You can do this," he said. "Just like you did when you melted through the ice. Give it everything you have." Nuri took a deep breath. Then she opened her mouth and released a stream of fire more powerful than anything Tay had ever seen. The flames hit the door like a river of light. The metal began to glow, first red, then orange, then white. The symbols on the door lit up one by one, burning with inner fire. Nuri kept breathing. Smoke poured from her nostrils. Her scales turned bright gold. She was pushing herself to the limit, giving every bit of heat her body could produce. Then, with a sound like thunder, the door began to move. It did not swing open like a normal door. Instead, it split into pieces and folded into the walls, revealing a dark passage that led down into the earth. Nori stopped breathing fire and collapsed. Tay caught her and held her close. She was exhausted but alive, her heart beating fast against his chest. "You did it," he whispered. "You opened the door." Hana grabbed a light and shined it into the passage. Stone steps led down into the darkness. The air that came out was warm and dry, unlike the frozen air of Kira 7. "The vault is temperature-controlled," Hana said with amazement. "After thousands of years, it still works." They waited for Nuri to recover. Then, together, they walked down the steps. The passage was long and dark, but their lights showed smooth walls covered with more symbols. Tai felt like he was walking through history, through a place that had been sealed since before humans even reached the stars. At the bottom of the steps, they found a chamber. It was huge, bigger than the hangar above, bigger than anything Tai had expected. The ceiling was high and curved, supported by pillars of silver metal. Lights began to turn on as they entered, ancient systems waking up after millennia of sleep. And in the center of the chamber, there was the treasure. Crystals. Hundreds of them. Thousands of them. They stood in rows like soldiers, each one as tall as a man, each one glowing with soft blue light. Tay stopped breathing. He knew what these were. Everyone knew what these were. Star-forged crystals. They were the most valuable objects in the galaxy. Each crystal contained more energy than a sun. They could power ships, stations, even entire planets. Before the war, the great civilizations had used them to build empires. After the war, they became so rare that most species believed they no longer existed. And here, under his worthless hangar, there were thousands of them. "Impossible," Hana whispered. "This is impossible." She walked forward slowly, her eyes reflecting the blue light of the crystals. She touched one with her hand and gasped. "It is real. They are all real." Tay sat down on the stone floor. His legs could not hold him anymore. Nuri climbed into his lap, and he held her without thinking. He thought about his grandfather, the crazy old man who had spent his life searching for treasure. He thought about his mother's laughter and the Galactic Court's zero-credit evaluation. He thought about the aliens who called humans insects and garbage collectors. His grandfather had found this vault. He had found it, but he was too old and too weak to dig it out. So he had left it to Tay, the grandson nobody believed in, the human with nothing but a worthless hangar and a dragon. Tears ran down Tay's face. He did not try to stop them. "Why?" he asked the empty air. "Why did you leave this to me, grandfather?" Hana knelt beside him. Her eyes were wet, too. "Because he knew you would come. He knew you would not give up. He knew you were like him, a dreamer who refuses to stop dreaming." Tay wiped his eyes. "What do we do now?" Hana looked at the crystals, her mind already working. "These crystals are worth more than most planets. With this much energy, humanity could rebuild everything we have lost. We could power our colonies for 1,000 years. We could finally stand equal to the other species." "But we cannot sell them," Tay said suddenly. Hana looked at him with surprise. "What?" "If we sell them, they will go to the highest bidder. The Corvani will buy them. The Vicari will buy them. Humans will get nothing, just credits that will disappear in a generation." He stood up, his eyes fixed on the glowing crystals. Grandfather did not hide these crystals so we could make money. He hid them so humanity would survive. Hana stared at him for a long moment. Then she smiled, a real smile, full of pride. "You are right," she said. "These crystals belong to humanity. All of humanity." They spent hours in the vault, counting crystals and taking pictures. Hana estimated there were over 2,000 crystals, enough energy to power every human colony in the galaxy for centuries. When they finally climbed back up to the surface, the sun was setting over Kira 7. The sky was painted with colors Tai had never seen before, pink and gold and purple, reflected off the snow. Nuri spread her wings and flew in circles above the hangar, roaring with joy. Tay watched her and laughed. "We did it," he said to Hana. "We actually did it." Hana nodded. "But our work is not finished. We need to protect this vault. We need to tell other humans. We need to build something that will last." Tay looked at the old hangar. The rusted walls, the broken roof, the snow piled against its sides. It was still ugly. It was still broken, but now it was the most important building in human history. "I am going to stay here," Tay said. "I am going to guard this place and make sure the crystals reach the people who need them." Hana put her hand on his shoulder. "You will not be alone. When humans hear about this, they will come from every corner of the galaxy. You will have all the help you need." Tay smiled. "Then let them come. Humanity is about to change." Above them, Nuri flew higher and higher, her fire lighting up the darkening sky. The frozen moon that nobody wanted had become the most valuable place in human space, and it all started with a worthless inheritance. The news spread faster than light. Within days, every human colony knew about the vault on Kira 7. Within weeks, ships began arriving, thousands of them, carrying scientists, engineers, doctors, and ordinary people who wanted to see the miracle with their own eyes. The frozen moon that nobody wanted became the center of human civilization. Tay watched it all happen from his hangar. The old building was gone now, replaced by a proper structure with heating and power and rooms for visitors. But he kept one thing from the original hangar, his grandfather's letter, framed and hanging on the wall. "There is treasure here. Trust your dragon." People came to see him every day. They shook his hand. They thanked him. Some of them cried. An old woman from a dying colony told him that her grandchildren would live because of what he had found. A young man said his planet could finally grow food again. Tay listened to all of them. He remembered what it felt like to be poor and alone, to be laughed at by aliens, to wonder if life had any purpose. Now he knew the answer. Life had purpose when you helped others. The Council of Humanity gathered on Kira 7 to decide what to do with the crystals. They met in a new building constructed near the vault, a beautiful hall made of glass and metal, filled with representatives from every human colony. Tai was invited to speak. He stood before hundreds of people feeling small and nervous. Nuri sat beside him, calm and steady. He touched her head for courage. "I did not find these crystals alone," he began. "My grandfather found them. He spent his whole life searching, and everyone thought he was crazy. When he left me his hangar, even I thought it was worthless." He paused and looked around the room. "But my grandfather taught me something important. He taught me that humans do not give up. Even when the galaxy laughs at us, even when we are poor and weak and alone, we keep trying, we keep dreaming, we keep believing that tomorrow will be better than today." The room was silent. Everyone was listening. "These crystals are not mine," Tay continued. "They belong to all of us. Every human, on every colony, in every corner of the galaxy. I am asking the Council to share them equally, not to sell them, not to trade them, to give them freely to our people, so that humanity can rise together." When he finished speaking, the room was quiet for a long moment. Then one person started clapping. Then another. Soon the whole hall was filled with applause that shook the walls. The Council voted that same day. The crystals would be shared equally among all human colonies. No one would pay. No one would be left behind. Humanity would rise together. The distribution began immediately. Ships carried crystals to distant colonies that had been dying from lack of power. Stations that had been dark for years lit up again. Factories that had been silent began working. Farms that had been frozen started growing food. Tay received messages from across the galaxy. "Our children can see the stars again," wrote a man from a colony near Vakari space. "The lights came on for the first time in 20 years. We are building new ships," wrote a woman from the mining colonies. "Real ships, not the broken pieces we have been using. Thank you." "My mother lived to see the power return," wrote a young girl. "She said it was the best day of her life. She said to tell you thank you." Tay read every message. He kept them in a folder on his computer, and when he felt tired or sad, he would read them again. The aliens noticed the change. At first, they did not believe the reports. Humans with star-forged crystals. Impossible. Humans were poor. Humans were weak. Humans lived on garbage planets and worked in ice mines, but the evidence was everywhere. Human ships were faster now. Human stations were brighter. Human colonies were growing instead of dying. The Corvani sent diplomats to investigate. They arrived on Kira 7 with serious faces and expensive clothes. They wanted to see the vault. They wanted to understand how humans had found such treasure. Tay met them at the landing zone. "You are the one who found the crystals?" the lead diplomat asked. He was tall and proud, with the cold eyes that all Corvani seemed to have. "Yes," Tay said. "How did you know they were here?" "My grandfather told me." The diplomat frowned. "A human knew about Starkeeper technology? That seems unlikely." Tay shrugged. "Humans know many things that others do not expect." The Corvani diplomat looked at him for a long moment. There was something different in his eyes now. Not respect exactly, but a kind of uncertainty. He was looking at a human differently than he had ever looked at one before. "Your species has surprised us," the diplomat said finally. "We did not think humans could achieve something like this." Tay smiled. Humans are full of surprises. The Corvani left without the crystals they had hoped to buy. They went back to their government and reported what they had seen. Soon, all the great alien civilizations knew the truth. Humanity was no longer the weakest species in the galaxy. Years passed. Tay stayed on Kira 7, watching over the vault and helping distribute the crystals. Hana became the director of a new research center built near the vault, studying Starkeeper technology and searching for other hidden treasures. Nuri grew older, but no less fierce. She became famous, the dragon who had found the fortune beneath the snow. Children on distant colonies named their pets after her. Artists painted pictures of her breathing fire at the silver door. One day, Tay received a message from his mother. He had not spoken to her since leaving Earth. "I was wrong," she wrote. "Your grandfather was not crazy. You were not crazy. I am sorry for laughing. I am proud of you, Tay. Your whole family is proud." Tay stared at the message for a long time. He did not know how to respond. Part of him was still angry. Part of him was still hurt. But another part of him understood. His mother had only seen what everyone else saw, a worthless hangar on a frozen moon. She could not have known what was hidden beneath the ice. "Thank you," he wrote back. "Come visit sometime. The moon is warmer now." On the anniversary of his arrival on Kira 7, a celebration was held. Thousands of humans gathered on the moon, which was no longer frozen and empty. Cities had grown around the vault. Parks and gardens covered the hills. Children played in streets that had not existed a decade ago. Tai stood on a platform above the crowd. Nuri sat beside him, her scales shining in the sunlight. Hana stood nearby, smiling with tears in her eyes. 10 years ago, Tay said to the crowd, "I came here with nothing. My grandfather left me a hangar that everyone said was worthless. The aliens laughed at me. My own family laughed at me. But I did not give up." He looked at Nuri. "And I was not alone. I had a friend who believed in me when no one else did. She found the treasure that changed our lives." Nuri lifted her head and roared, a great proud roar that echoed across the hills. The crowd cheered. Humanity was once the poorest species in the galaxy, Tay continued. We arrived late. We got the worst planets. We worked the hardest jobs. But we never stopped dreaming. We never stopped believing that we could be more. He raised his hand toward the sky, where human ships now flew without fear. Look at us now. We are building. We are growing. We are rising. Not because we are stronger than other species, not because we are smarter, but because we refuse to give up, because we take worthless things and make them valuable. Because we see treasure where others see garbage. The crowd roared again, louder than before. My grandfather believed in humanity, Tay said. He believed in me, and I believe in all of you. Together, we will build a future that no one thought possible. Together, we will show the galaxy what humans can do. He looked out at the crowd, at the faces of humans from 100 colonies, all united by hope. They called our inheritance worthless, he said, but we proved them wrong, and we will keep proving them wrong forever. Nuri spread her wings and flew into the sky, breathing fire that painted the clouds with light. The crowd cheered and cheered, their voices rising like a song, and on a frozen moon that nobody wanted, humanity celebrated its rise to the stars.